Hey, it's Sammy for another episode of the IdOMUSIC podcast, and our goal and our mission is to empower and educate musicians and artists worldwide. And on today's episode, we sat down with artist manager and A&R consultant Jeremy Stevenson, discussing his start in engineering at Patchwerk, transitioning from engineer to A&R, and how relationships and internships helped propel his career. Hey, it's Sammy for another episode of the IdOMUSIC podcast, and I'm sitting down with artist manager and A&R consultant Jeremy Stevenson. Yeah. How you feeling?
I'm good. Just a little tired, like I mentioned before.
A little sleepy. It's okay. We're in here now. So before artist manager and A&R consultant, you actually were engineering here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How long were you at Patchwerk, and how did that even come about?
So I started January 2005, and I like to think that I earned the record of longest internship.
How long were you interning?
I believe it's a year and 10 months.
Wow.
So at the time, I don't know if anyone else has beat that, but yeah. I
technically
was interning for like a year and like 2-3 months. And then, I was assisting and doing all that stuff during the time too, but yeah.
Before you were like not an intern anymore, it was a year and 10
Yeah,
months.
mm-hmm.
That is a long time.
Yeah, so I assisted Nico, Mike Wilson, Steve Fisher, Leslie a couple of times, and yeah, I was here.
Let's rewind a little bit. When did you realize that engineering was like a space for you, or like how did you get into music? What was the story behind that?
So engineering, so back in the day, vinyl, they had the credits and everything on the back of the records. I would listen to it and I would just look at the titles and, I was just really interested in how records were made. And things that just stuck out were that I would see the same engineers on certain records that I loved. And I didn't know what it meant, and I didn't know what the job title actually was. But, I remember looking at, and it's going to escape me now, but the Van Halen records, Michael Jackson records, you see Bruce Sweetin, and I don't know. I just got really curious about that. And, the internet was a thing, but it wasn't quite what it is now. So the information wasn't like, you type in mix engineer or whatever, you would just get names, but there wouldn't be like a ton of information on what it was. So yeah. So just for years, I just thought like, they're the person in the studio just turning and twisting knobs. And yeah, I don't know, something about it just interested me, like hanging out with musicians and recording them and being responsible for, getting sounds to tape and all that. And so this was early. And then,
like how early? How old were you when you were like?
For sure, like 10,
wow.
10, 11, like doing that. And then started picking up more and more on music. My parents would buy me instruments. And
what instrument was
like
the first?
Guitar, pianos. And I mean, would buy a ton of guitars. I just wasn't even that good really at the beginning, but I was obsessed with the idea of buying them and having instruments around the house. And started like a fake band and was playing with friends. And yeah, that's when I knew like, okay, cool, this is exactly what it is.
Where are you from originally?
I'm from Savannah, Georgia originally.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm from Atlanta, so I mean, I have family, Savannah, Macon,
Dope,
Georgia's,
Valdosta,
everybody around.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. So you spent a lot of time trying to learn instruments, playing instruments early on, and 10 years old though to like think about engineering is definitely like when did you discover what that really was though? Like
so probably like 2 or 3 years after that. I would read a lot of like biographies on famous musicians or bands I was into, and they would talk about how important the engineers were. So that's when I started being like, okay, cool, like these dudes might be important. They're important, and they might be actually getting paid to do this because I had no idea how that worked either. But yeah, I was always like into like taking things apart and trying to put them back together, and start realizing that's a lot of what engineers, especially the old school guys, were into. Fixing consoles, rewiring speakers, soldering and stuff. So I don't know, it just made sense to me. Yeah.
So you ended up going to school for it.
Mm-hmm.
Where'd you go to school?
So I went to Arizona State first, just for college. I had a friend who went there on a soccer scholarship, so I kind of followed him. And being there, they have like somewhat of a music program, but not like recording. But there's a school based there in Phoenix called the Conservatory of Recording Arts. Mm-hmm. And I met someone who went there. I got to tag along to a few of his classes, and I was just like, yeah, I want to do this. So I dropped out of ASU and started the program there, which is about a year long. And yeah, they teach you all like the technical side of it. I don't know. I loved it. I mean, I was like just into it, and it was a bunch of it was just like around the clock engineering, being around studios, consoles, and then,
What was the most important thing you learned during school? Because I'm sure you learned majority of what you experienced during your internship experience.
That was probably the first time when I realized like people skills and like relationships, because a lot of the guys there were, they're passionate about music, but they're also really competitive. And I don't know, you just learn like, the industry is going to be a long haul. It isn't a sprint. So even from then, just from engineers and stuff, you realize like people's personality conflicts and, ego. And that was probably the biggest experience, because we had a big class, and there were a lot of guys that I loved in that class, and we had like a kind of like a clique. We would hang out outside of school, and then there were some guys who were just like off to themselves, and like I said, they were like just mad competitive. It's funny now that I think about it, but that was probably the biggest lesson, was just like realizing how different people are. And college does a lot of that too, like how different people are and how they're raised and how to work within that. And like, you don't necessarily have to love somebody to work with them or be friends with them. So yeah,
did you experience that when you actually started working with artists, where it's like, I don't have to love you to work with you?
Now see, that's funny, because I feel that complete opposite way. Okay. I feel like I couldn't, I always do my best, always work to make anyone sound great. But after a while, you start realizing, oh yeah, it is a choice. Like, and you do better work. The work is more like, fulfilling, rewarding if you're working with people that you believe in and that you rock with. Outside of like, I see sessions and I see the engineers get chomped out, and I just could never say like, oh man, I would let someone just like yell at me and scream at me when I'm in the chair. And some people just treat engineers like, like shit, like they don't matter. So, when you're intern, you don't really have a choice, and you learn that like, okay, wow, like, damn, they're beefing, like they ain't getting along. But when you start going out freelancing, consulting for yourself, you're like, yeah, I'm only going to work with people that I like and that I care about.
Right.
And sometimes, to make money, you have to do things, but I didn't run into too much where, I had to work with someone that I didn't like or I didn't get along with. Like, I can count the bad sessions on one hand that I've had.
That's fortunate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a fortunate situation. What was like your first, like, I guess, big session after like your
This one's super funny, and Kurt will probably, I don't know if Kurt would even remember this, but I was interning. It was probably 6 months in. It was super hot. So, like summers in Georgia. And we used to have intern runs to Costco or Sam's or whatever it is, and they bring in the drinks for the vending machine, and then we would have to, like, somebody would pull up over here to this side door, and we'd take all the drinks out and put them in the machines and stuff. And one of those days, 2 guys went, and I was the only intern here because it was slow. And so I had that side door open, anticipating them pulling up, and Tip walked in, T.I., and he came in. It was just like seeing Tip for the first time, like crazy.
Right.
And he was telling Kurt, like, man, I need someone to come down to my studio. And I think this was that joint off. It used to be the old. Funny enough, I ended up working there like probably 2 years later. The old Gangsta Grill studio, Drama in Them studio over there by Peter Street. Mm-hmm. He had just got the spot and bought a bunch of equipment, and he was looking for somebody to hook all the stuff up. So he came to Patchwerk, and he was telling Kurt, like, oh, man, I just need somebody for a couple of hours or whatever. And Kurt was like, Jay, you can go. So I hopped in the car with him. And at the time, I can't remember what album was out, but this was crazy to me that rappers listen to other rappers. Like, this nigga was listening to Wayne, his first album, the first Carter. And it was just crazy because he was rapping it like line for line. Like, I'm sitting in the back seat, like, you know what I mean? Like, from Savannah, Georgia, like, don't know nothing.
Right.
It was just crazy. It was a crazy experience. So he pulled up to the studio, hopped out, and I was literally like hooking up, microphones, and he had just bought an MPC.
Did you know like what you were doing?
Hell no, nah, I didn't. But I faked it, and I got it, like, I got it to where it was working and sound was coming out and stuff, and that's all he cared about at the time.
Right.
And he was sitting there making beats and, talking to me about like how long I've been here, and it was crazy because I know he produced, and he was like jamming, like he was like, he knew how to like bring up the tracks, how to load up sounds and stuff. And then I tracked one of the beats into Pro Tools, barely. And he was patient with me, man. He gave me so much grace. But tracked it in, he tracked some vocals to it, and then he was like, all right, man. He's like, man, I think I'm done for today or whatever. It's like a couple hours, like probably like 4 or 5 hours. And he, dropped me back off here and told me like, thank you. Handed me like $200-$300 and that was it. And I was just like, yo, it's crazy. I came back and everybody was like hella like gassed up and mad. Like, man, you was hanging out with Tim. And I was like, yeah. So the two people who went, I think it was actually Denny and Miles doing a run. They were super tight. That like, damn, man, like if I had been here, Miles had seniority. So Miles knew what he was doing. Yeah. He would have done it. But yeah, it was just cool.
Meant for you.
Yeah.
The situation meant for you.
Yeah, I guess. I didn't go down in flames, so I was cool. I was excited about it.
That's awesome. So, I mean, fast forward, you do have, we'll get into like your time engineering, but fast forward to now, you're artist manager and A&R consultant. What does that mean? I mean, I know what an artist manager is. I know what a consultant is, but like, what does that mean for you? What is it that you
So after years, so, I guess when we'll talk about that, I just wanted to do more. And I felt like I was lucky enough to work with people who allowed me to grow. And at that point, I just felt like I was booking sessions. I was like low-key A&R, and like I meet a writer in the hallway at a studio in LA, and they would send me records, they would email them, and I'd be like, yo, you're jamming, like I'm gonna have you come in and write some stuff to some tracks that the producer I'm working with. And those songs ended up getting placed and like cut with artists and the whole nine. So I was like, damn, that's what A&R is. And then at the time I was completely ignorant about like pay scales and positions and job titles. But I started figuring out that, damn, that's what the A&Rs do. And like, shoot, we making about the same kind of money. They probably making more than me. Like, I want to do that. I don't want to just sit in a chair, I love the technical side of it, but I think at one point I had accomplished a lot of the things I thought like would take me 10, 15 years to do. I did it in a rather short amount of time.
So what things were those that you were trying to accomplish?
Man, just seeing my name in an album booklet was like a big thing for me.
Which one was that?
The first record, probably Young Jock, that first album. And it was just assistant. Like I was just like literally sitting in the room while they were recording. But I wanted to work with like the only reason I even came to Atlanta and intern was like, L.A. Reid, LaFace, So Def. So I got to work with like JD. I got to work with him. Worked with Usher. That was like a huge thing because like growing up.
His engineer at a point.
Yeah, at one point, for a couple of albums I worked with him. And I just, I mixed a record that, was on radio or a couple records that went to radio. And
how did that feel to like hear it on the radio? Like
crazy.
I did that.
Yeah, crazy. And then it's like there's like so much anxiety that comes with it too, because I feel like any engineer will tell you like you'll hear something and be like, fuck man, I could have like did that better or tweaked it. And so getting over that stuff, and then even having like people I looked up to like Leslie call me and be like, yo, this mix is jamming, or tell me when something wasn't good and be like, man, this is what you need to do next time. And you prepare for something, and when it actually happens, you realize like, oh, there's no amount of studying and preparing for the moment. It just like things happen, and you just have to like rock with it. So, but yeah, I did all those things, and I just wanted to do more. And some people were really encouraging at the time about it, and then others were kind of like, especially in the studio, there's that whole thing, creatives versus suits, or they got the label. It's like, damn, that shit is lame. Like you in the studio helping make records, that's really what it is. And I felt that, but I just, I wanted to do more. So
you wanted to have something else going on. How did you ultimately like realize though, like, I mean, obviously you were just doing it, but what was it in learning the process and the business behind it? Like, okay, this is what this specifically is. I'm A&R right now. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's, and and I wish I knew I was more prepared for the transition, because it took a lot longer, because I was so ignorant of how things worked, and I wish I had access to so much stuff, especially when we lived in Santa Monica and we were working at No Excuses, which was Interscope Studio. It was Jimmy's studio across the street. I had access to like tons of A&Rs all the time. I had a lot of off time too, but I spent it in the studio, doing studio stuff. But I didn't know at the time that I was going to be making that transition, I guess. So maybe it just wasn't on my mind. But I wish I would have spent more time across the street in the office and learned, like I said, positions, titles, just learned the business more. Because when I got out of engineering, I did it really fast. I was like, all right. At the time, we were living in LA, and Polo made the trip back, the move back to Atlanta. So he was just getting set up. And I didn't realize it at the time either, but I was responsible for so much, and he allowed me to be responsible for so much when it came to his stuff. And like, keeping his drives, and he just depended on me a lot. I was mixing records for him, and when I want to do something, I just do it when I want to do it. And now looking back at it, I kind of look at it like I bailed like a little too fast for him. Like I don't even know if I found someone suitable, because it's like at a point you get like a groove or a rhythm with somebody. No one could just come in. I don't care how good they were. No one could just come in and like learn his file management, learn how he liked to have things. And so when I bailed, and I had just had my son. It was a lot. It was a lot at the time, but I knew it's what I wanted to do. And I felt like, well, shoot, if I don't do it now and my son gets older, I'm not going to want to be away. So, I just hopped out the chair, got another internship. I won't say another internship, but it was the first internship in like 7 years or whatever. Just up in New York. I moved to New York. Oh, wow. Moved in with my best friend, who I actually met here at Patchwerk, who is still my business partner to this day. Moved in with him, and he was working at RCA at the time. And I would just go with him to RCA every day and like watch. I would grab and get people's food and stuff, which was funny because it's like the label I was working at, or interning for, or work, just being up there every day. Usher was signed there, Chris Brown was signed there. I had worked with all of them, like literally had recorded songs mixed.
You switched roles so fast. So, I mean, it seems, especially like for a man, that could be not hurt your pride, but like it could be a little stab or jab at your pride.
I guess if you're prideful, but I'm not. Yeah, I feel like I learned so much like humility and what it meant. Like when I was interning here, like I didn't have any money for like the longest time, and those internships weren't paid at the time. But there was three of us it was just 3 interns for like probably like a year and some change. It was just me, Denny, and Miles for forever. And and Kurt was just like, out of the kindness of his own heart, just saw how hard we were working and started paying us. And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be able to have gotten that apartment here down off of MLK. I mean, you just learn, like, I didn't have a bed for like, when I finally actually bought a bed, I was just like, dog, I didn't even know like how to act. I still slept on the floor when I bought my first bed. It was like, I don't know. You just learn humility through the internship, and then just in the business, being an engineer. I mean, yeah, you just learn, that. So it wasn't a thing. It wasn't a thing when I started interning again. Yeah, it wasn't a thing.
You were just like, I just got to do this.
I wanted to do it. I was really, really, really hell-bent on like learning it and then seeing what it was. And, I got to watch like Mark Pitts and Wayne Burroughs, and, Chris allowed me to be up there at RCA, because those internships, like formal internships, they're for college credit. So obviously I wasn't in college, right. But, they let me rock. And I would do things like I would take on sessions. So when they needed someone to record, I was still like, trying to be humble, I was still fine. Like I was still really good as an engineer. So I would do sessions, and Alicia Keys, longtime engineer, and would throw me sessions at Jungle, the studio she had just partnered up and did in New York. So I would work there after being at RCA, and then on the weekends, Mary J. Blige, Nas. I was doing a lot of stuff, and that was how I was making money. So that way I could do the internship.
So from the internship, where did that lead you?
So I did that for a while, and
what's a while?
Probably like easily like 8-10 months. So drastically shorter than my engineering internship, but we were like bumping into artists and things, and we'd take it to the label. Trying to, I wouldn't say trying to sign, but I would just be like, yo, you need to check this person out. They're dope. And that's when I realized like, oh, there's like a process to it, a hierarchy. Like, it ain't just like, oh, you bring an artist in and they're amazing, then they sign them and then boom, and then your career starts. It was just like, nah, you get told no all the time. Even stuff that's super jammy, you just be like, no. And then you're just like sitting there like,
what do I do?
Like, how do you not, you know what I mean? So it was like, that was a process too, is learning like, you got a boss, how budgets work, P&Ls.
What's that?
Just like budgets. And then like, if you sign someone, there's like a profit and loss scale to it. So it's like A&Rs are responsible for budgets. You go over your budget, then you have to go like, it's just a lot. It's a lot of numbers, and it's a lot of like, how do I look versus what's best for the artist? So, and which I understand, because if you're just signing things and there's like, you're sitting on all this like unrecouped money, I mean, you look crazy, because at the end of the day, it's a business. Like, like they have to profit, they have to make money. And I learned a lot about budgets from watching, and I don't want to get too descriptive, but like watching how J. Cole made records it was just like, man, it was so cost efficient. Like, cause he produced a lot of his early on stuff, and he had a team around him, and they moved so seasoned to be so young. And then, you just realize, like, some guys are spending so much money on studio time, like you have to sell so many records and do this, and that.
To recoup from it.
And then the deals were so different too back then. So, there was a lot of talk about the 360 stuff, and labels weren't making as much money. The housing market crashed in '08. So it was just a lot of like, I've seen it when I first came in, it was really good, and people were making hand over fist. Engineers were charging like 75 to 100 an hour to record. Then, the housing market fell out the bottom, and, the labels were hurting. Everybody was. It was just like across the nation. You start seeing like the rates going down. Like here in Atlanta especially, it's like it went from 50 to 40 to 30 to 25 to like some sessions I saw people were doing like $15, $20 an hour, which still is a significant amount of money, I guess. Like, what job could I have had outside of this making $20 an hour just out the gate? But, when you're talking about you're charging 50 and then literally over the course of a year, you're going from 50 to 25, 20, it affects your lifestyle. So that was crazy. But yeah, so it was a lot of learning during that process about like, it's not just about signing artists. It's not just about making great music. It's a balance to it, like the business side of it and that. So the ones who stay around, the ones who wield a lot of power or yield a lot of power in the business are those who can like understand the balance of like the art side of it, which we all care about, like good music, but then like how to record an album under budget, how to get features or even production advances and stuff lower because a relationship, like, man, I know you charge 50, but I need this, and this artist is blah, 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 blah. I learned all that. Like, I learned all that from watching, and even powerful people, getting hit over the head for a feature and all that stuff. I'm like, damn, so it don't matter who you are, your rate is your rate sometimes.
Right,
so just learning when to, like, push and then when to pull back.
Right.
I learned all that during the course of that time.
I was going to ask, too, more specifically, being an artist manager, but also, like, doing A&R, like, basically what you said, like, if it's a good, what am I trying to say? Like, if it's a good look for you, you said something like, if it's a good look for you or, if it's going to make money, essentially. How do you balance wanting to help the artist, though? Or, like, knowing this is good, like, really being passionate or, like, invested into this, like, person or their... Because, at the end of the day, which makes music, people not understand that music is a business is because it is so personal. It is such a, like, art form, right? How do you, as the artist manager or the consultant, A&R consultant, separate the two?
So one is being a consultant gives you a lot of freedom. But it also, you have artists or jobs that are given to you. So, we all need to make money. Like, that's a fact. Like, we all have bills and blah, blah, blah. So I still pick and choose the things that I feel like I could, I guess, influence the project in a sense for the better. But also, too, like, okay, cool, well, I need to be working, like, making money. So sometimes if I've had a really good year or a really good couple of months, I'm only taking things that I love, and I would turn down a lot of stuff. But then if I needed to be working, I just wouldn't take anything, but I would be like, okay, how can I help this artist? Or people would tell me what they needed. People would tell me what they needed or what they're looking for a certain artist. And maybe I don't like their music all the way like that, or maybe I don't understand them, but I'd be like, bruh, like, I know the people that they're trying to do. So, so it's like the give and take. And like I said, I've been fortunate to where I could do things like that. And then as far as like artist management, I've only managed one artist, and I only managed one artist. And
Who's that?
this artist named Beam. And artist management to me was like probably easily the most difficult job in the business.
Why is that?
There's just so much expectation, and it's like, any manager can be fired at any time for any reason. It's not concrete. It's not like, you're signing to a production deal or a label. Usually when those ties are cut, you figure out whatever the exit plan is, but that's it, I feel like artist managers are expected to move mountains. And even when the mountain is moved, like, there's no acknowledgement of it. It's just like, okay, cool, that's where I wanted it to be. So
Great,
cool, thank
thanks.
you. Yeah, it's really, and then you're artist manager, you're like their therapist. Sometimes you're the business manager. You're their agent. You help with marketing, and it's just a lot. So I used to always think like, man, like I love working with artists, being in the chair, because it's that creative connection and making them sound good. It's actually kind of intimate. It's kind of crazy, but I always used to see. So out of that relationship, I would see their interaction with their managers, and they'd be like, damn, man, like artists be giving the managers hell, like just giving niggas such a hard time. I kind of always said to myself, oh, I could never see myself doing that or working with an artist. But during one of the consulting gigs I was doing, I met Beam. And it was so crazy because he was just there. So I would leave the studio after working with the artist that we were doing the project with. And I come back the next day, he'd still be there, same clothes, like hair all crazy. And I didn't speak to him like for probably like the first 2 or 3 days. I didn't really say anything to him. He wasn't working with us. He was just happened to be in the same studio. And then one night I was leaving and I heard like music playing. I was kind of sitting outside the door and it was like super jamming. So like I walked in and like introduced myself and just started asking him questions. And I mean like easily, I've worked with a lot of people and he's easily up there with, some of the more talented people. And I'm attracted to singer-songwriters, people who create their own material. And he did everything literally. He produces his own records. He would writes his own records, records himself. He has so many different influences and stuff. So I was at the end of that contract of turning in that album. And I was going through a lot of like big life changes at the time. And, one of the people I look up to the most was telling me like, if you believe in this or, you really did, like, take the time out. She's like, you save the money, you got it, you'll be straight for a year, bail and just do this for 1 year and see what happens. But you're not going to get any further in your career by just consulting for people. Sometimes are really, you work with an artist and they understand what you bring. Like they see the change in the music and stuff, hopefully. And then other jobs when you consult and stuff, it's just like nothing. There's not, it's not an even exchange. It's just like give, and then that's it. And then, you get what you get, you negotiate what you negotiate, and then that's it. So I did. We turned in that record, and then full-time started managing him. It's been about 1.5 years, and
how's everything going?
It's great. It's amazing. You notice the difference between having something that you think is amazing, pushing and pushing. There's a difference between pushing and pulling. And so, like, when you push, eventually, you get to the edge and then things start moving. But being pulled, it's just like instantaneous. Like when someone really wants something, it's like the wheel starts spinning really quickly. So, I don't know. It's probably easily one of the best decisions I've ever made. So it's paying off.
That's rewarding.
Yeah, it is. But it's all it's all on him. Like I give the credit to the artists and creative people I work with. Like it's not about me. I'm here to advise you. I'm here to negotiate things for you. Do the things that take your mind off the business side, so that way you can be creative. And if that person is truly special and unique, and it obviously things, the relationships that I have and stuff have helped, but that kid is, like I said, yeah, I'm really excited, yeah.
It seems like, management is definitely a very selfless role, and you seem to be very, like, also just, like, easygoing and, like, balanced, you seem.
Yeah, I get crunk, though. Like, I'm super crunk about stuff. I'm a Scorpio, so I feel like by nature I'm just, like, really passionate. And I run hot, but so I've learned. So
you just celebrated a birthday? Or?
Yep.
Happy belated?
Thank you. Okay. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so, I mean, of course, we have our points, but...
I mean, I'm fired up a lot, actually.
Oh,
I'm even...
You're even right now.
I'm even most of the time, and I've learned, like I said, early, like about, but being an artist manager, the thing that I realized is, like, it's okay. Because you're fighting for this person, and it's okay to... I mean, shit, I'm supposed to be the bad person. I'm supposed to look crazy. I tell him that all the time. I say, if you have trouble or a problem saying no to someone, just tell them to talk to me and I'll do it. And I said, I can be an asshole, but I don't want you to be, and you shouldn't be. You should be the person where it's like, damn, bro, your manager be tripping. But you'd be like, yeah, I know, man, but, we just trying to figure it out. You know what I mean? Like, it's good cop, bad cop. I want you to always be the good cop. I don't want you to ever feel like you had to turn up on somebody.
Exactly.
Like, let me do it. I don't mind. And at the end of the day, people respect you for it. All the managers I look up to are like, they cool, they're nice. The best ones, they're really cool, and things are cool when it's cool. But, if you try to play like crazy, they get crunk. So
that's real. Within
reason, though. Within reason. Like, don't go too far.
Right.
Yeah.
So you worked with a lot of people. You've have worked with the Grammy Award winning Lecrae and his team. And I think that, I mean, your credits go from like 8-Ball, MJG.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I can say it right.
Yep.
I'm trying to read and say what I'm trying to say. Christina Aguilera, Justin Bieber, list goes on, which is super cool. But I wanted to ask you more specifically about like working with Lecrae, because he's pretty much one of the first artists coining like Christian hip hop, essentially. And working with like mainstream hip hop artists and things like that. What would you say, or how would you describe that movement and just like working on that side? Because obviously you worked from urban to pop. I don't know what Robin Thicke is considered, R&B. But you know, just like been pretty versatile throughout your career of like engineering and working with artists. And I don't know what sort of music your artist is producing, but like on the management side, you just have been across the board in music. So I'm more so curious about Christian hip hop, because like I work for a praise station, so like I hear his songs and stuff on Willie Mo Jr. show all the time. But it's just interesting because like I grew up on like church music, you know what I mean?
Yeah, me
so
too.
Like to see
me too.
that transition into work behind that project, how would you describe that movement?
It's
what
interesting.
He was trying to do
it's interesting because I was brought in through, it's so funny, a writer that I manage, and we're really good friends and partners too, Natalie Sims, and that's a side to what she's really into.
Gotcha.
I know next to nothing about Christian hip hop prior, but it was an opportunity for her. She's like a creative director, artist, writer, just like super talented. And, you know, I always tell like, you know, creative people, like you have your career and then you have like your job, you know? So like if you're in between maybe a lull or like a valley in your career, taking a job is like, you know, super important just to like, you know, facilitate your income. And she wasn't at a valley at the point. She was like super, you know, like always, she's just kind of on fire, and people wanted to work with her, and just like, you know, her advice on things. She's just great because it's like, imagine having an A&R that can help write a record, could tell you like what's wrong with it, but then actually help you fill in the gap. That's Natalie, and I told her, you know, you should do it. Like this would be great for you to actually like, you know, be a way for you to make money. She had just did a publishing deal, or we were on the top of doing the publishing deal. So it wasn't about money, more so that I told her it was really about like adding this to your resume, you know, being able to A&R a project. Obviously, she had never done it before, so one of her stipulations was that I came along and did it with her. And so that whole opportunity came from her. Gotcha. And I learned a lot. Like, I just learned a lot. I feel like music is music, especially like when you're talking about like black music and rap and hip hop. It's just, and even what I think makes Lecrae successful is that, how to say this without like offending anyone. You know, Christian hip hop, what I knew as a kid was always corny. You know, I don't think praise and worship music is corny. I don't think gospel music is corny, but just like I love hip hop and you love, you know, there's some stuff that's gimmicky, and I feel like in the hip hop space, instead of just making records and making good music, you know, then there's I guess the praise side of it, where, you know, the music is a direct reflection of their beliefs. What I think Lecrae and what Reach does well, or what made it so popular, was that they were just making great music. And it so happened to be he was, you know, he believed in God. Yeah, right. The content, exactly. And he would write, you know, about his life, and I think it was just like, it comes from an honest space, just like anything. So I feel like they cornered the market, and they just freaking killed it, with the, you know, the production and stuff. It sounded like mainstream music, like secular music, but, you know, just music with a message. That's how I look at it. But working with him, I think what at the time, All Things Work Together is the record that we worked on. He was just looking to do more. I felt like maybe he conquered that space, and he wanted to make better records. He wanted to work with mainstream producers and writers, keep the content the same, but just like bridge the gap, I guess, between the fans he had previously and then new fans, like, you know, people like me who just like love rap, love hip hop, love black music. So that's kind of what we did. So.
That's dope. I think it's just a super niche thing to be doing and doing so well, and also bringing on like mainstream artists and you know, like in a completely different genre. That's just like not like to hear, you know, Ty Dolla $ign or Jeremiah
Yeah.
like on
That and that could have went
so cool.
left really quick, you know. So it's
Yeah.
like, you know, walking the line between, you know, what's cool and what's dope but still maintaining that relationship and stuff that he has with his core fan base.
Exactly.
But I don't know. I'm really proud of those records.
I think
and
it's dope.
Yeah, I'm
congrats.
really excited about them. And even the Tori Kelly record went gold. I don't know. I was really excited with it, and it was like my goal was to make it to where I could listen to it. You know what I'm saying? Like say objectively, but just like riding around and think like, oh, this is jamming, like not think anything of it and just be like, yo, this song is dope.
Just the
and,
song, you know, like no judgment about what sort of genre it's from. I agree.
Yeah.
I think that's dope. So I'm going to ask you, before we kind of wrap it up, but I know you have a son, and I know how often I see, you know, Luke's over there yawning. You were tired coming in here. How often I see you guys in the studio or like, you know, management is a around the clock job. How do you balance with your son, with your family, you know, just personal life and your professional life?
I mean,
Or
I guess people say, you know, you make time for the things that are important to you. He is easily the most important thing to me, period. And everyone I work with knows that too. And, you know, they love him. Everyone has a relationship with my son.
Is he like a studio kid? Does he be around like that?
Yeah, he loves the studio. It's funny, he loves music. It's not something I try to push on him. I want to see what naturally comes to him, but music is, you know, I guess it's just yeah, it's just something that he's picked up on. But yeah, he comes to the studio with me. He understands like, oh, you're going to the studio. I have to travel quite a bit, and I'm probably going to end up traveling a lot this year coming up. But yeah, I put him first, and I feel like my advice to anyone who, you know, does have a family or is maybe even dealing with stuff in a personal life is like, put that first. Like, I love music, and everybody knows that. Like, I love it. But you know, love of my child actually, you know, easily supersedes that.
For sure.
So I do that first, and then music comes second. And it's actually pretty easy. Like, it wasn't always easy, but you know, even this last year and a half has been extremely hard. But I find that if you know, as long as I've put him first and I've made decisions around him, make sure he's straight first before I go do anything, like come to the studio and stuff, then it works. And if I can't work with someone or someone's not with that, I totally understand. Like, if you need someone that's 24/7 around the clock, drops everything to come, hey, like, more power to you.
Right.
But the people, I've been fortunate enough, like I said, to work with people who understand and, you know I love my son. And I won't drop the ball on anything that I got going on. I haven't. But he comes first, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with losing opportunities because I have to, you know, go get my son from school or whatever. But I make the time, and I end up working probably longer hours, I guess, like responsiveness and stuff. But I pick him up from school. I work from home a lot. And, you know, he knows like from certain times, like if I pick him up from school, we do homework. And then after that, I'm on the phone dealing with whatever. And he's cool with it. Like, now he's gotten to the point where like he'll actually like write something on a sheet of paper if he sees me on the phone, and he'll like show it to me. Like, can I have this, or can I go do this? And I don't know. He's like it's like a mini business partner.
Mini business partner?
Yeah. He lets me rock. So yeah.
Okay. Last thing I want to ask is like, if you could tell, you know, an aspiring engineer or just anybody who might be following in your like direction, your footsteps, what's something that you know now that you wish you had known before?
Pay attention to trends. Read the trades. Read Billboard. Read Hits Daily Double. Pay attention to more than just what's the technical side, what's in front of you. And I'd actually give this advice to anyone. I don't know if I even know an engineer that has kind of doing what I'm doing now. So it's not to say I'm the first, but I just don't know anyone personally. But I do know Jason Joshua, who started on the business side of it and then transitioned over to mixing and engineering, which I think is like crazy. Like, I think that's probably the craziest story ever.
Yeah.
But, you know, you never know where the business is going to lead you. Hopefully you're always evolving. I don't think anyone should focus on master something, but then going into other things and say, well, what other parts of the business are you interested in? Learn those things, master those, because, you know, in 2005, I'm getting out of school. Engineering was like my main focus. It was the only thing I thought I was gonna do forever. I thought I was gonna be like Leslie and, be mixing records and, for 20, 30 years or whatever it is. And that just wasn't the case. I did what I did, and I feel like I excelled, and I killed it. I feel like there was nothing that I couldn't do as an engineer. And then just so happened, it's like I'm ambitious, and I just wanted to keep learning parts of the business. And I pushed myself, but I feel like if I had paid more attention to the business aspect of it, it would have helped me later on. So then when I guess I did want to make the transition to A&R, I just would have understood more. Read. I can't stress that enough either. Is just being on top of it. Like, read books about people that you hear in the studio mentioned, and that was a big part of my education too. Was just like I didn't have a mentor in the business that I could reach out to outside of a few. So like Keith Thomas, who's an A&R for RCA, who's like probably has like the best ears ever of anyone that I've ever met. He's played a big part of my career too, and just like being encouraging, honestly, because that's all it takes is just having one person tell you like, nah, dog, you could do this, and doesn't bullshit you, will tell you the truth about certain things, like, yeah, this is whack, or this is dope, or even say, hey, this ain't for me, but maybe this person would be into it. That was a big part of it, because a lot of people would tell me, stay in your lane. You're an engineer, like,
right, like,
blah, blah, blah. Yeah, why are you trying to do this? And it did discourage me, but it was just like, it's crazy. You start realizing, like, people know you as one thing. They kind of just love you in this box. And still to this day, I have people call me Engineer J, which is cool. Like, I rock with it. I think that's dope because I was dope. But, it takes a second to build that other side of what you're doing. And I think people start seeing you moving around and like, oh man, you still engineering? And you're like, no, like, I'm doing artist management and A&R and stuff. And the credits start coming out, and then, branding yourself on social media. I hate using that word branding, but it really is, because you have to be your own cheerleader, because if you don't say it, no one else will. Or if you leave it out to other people just to make
that for
I mean, there's no control in it. So I just say, man, read, study, ask questions, read the trades, read Billboard, because you never know. You just never know. But I do also think, being business minded can only help you. Even if you say, I'm going to stay in a chair, right, and just rock this, thing out, because then you're learning about what A&Rs are signing what artists, and certain artists, end up making big records, 3-4 years down the line. Knowing those A&Rs and making those relationships, however that happens, that's like vital, to being an engineer. It's like
just knowing what's going on around you. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that you've done a great job of, like, even if you didn't realize you were doing it at the time, building and forging those relationships with people.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, sure.
So that's good, and I'm excited for the success for you and your artist, and
thank you.
All of the other things that you have going on. Could you tell them where they can find you on social media and see, keep up with what y'all got going on?
Yeah, so I'm Instagram, like, that's it, really. I have a Twitter and stuff, but it's like trash. But it's Instagram, SupaDupaJ, SupaDupaj. Man, just hit me up on there, DM me, slide in, hop in the DMs, whatever. I use Instagram a lot, and that's another thing too. I think people would always say like, Instagram is like fake, like blah blah blah. It's like, bro, like, I've had, I don't want to cap it, but I've had CEOs of record companies slide in my DM and tell me, hey, bro, like, I've heard this about you. Can I get your number? I want to talk. I've reached out to A&Rs on my end, people from Spotify, Apple. Like, it's crazy how much I use Instagram for my business. So, and I read every message, every comment that's sent to me. My email's on there. Man, yeah, hit me up on Instagram. Yeah, that's really where I'm at. So yeah, follow me on there, and then I post stuff about my artists and just what I'm doing every day on Instagram stories. So
perfect. Yeah. Then, as always, you guys can. Well, first, I thank you, Jeremy, for sitting down with me.
Thank you for having me.
And talking and sharing a lot about your journey, and I hope that inspires someone else. As always, you guys can find this podcast on social media at IDM Podcast, as well as myself, Sammy Approved, on all social media platforms. Thank you again, Jeremy.
Yeah, thank you.
Sonically superior.